Now, you'll be seeing on your screen contract, construction contract and dispute resolution. It is QTS 453. Call it 407 for those that are doing it as a carryover course. The 413 was a mistake in initial syllabus. I wouldn't think any of you register 413 anyway. So it's either 453 or 407. The dispute resolution in construction. Of course, you are aware of the objective of this course is for you to know about construction contract and how the different forms of contracts we have in the industry is being managed. And of course, as a quantity surveyor, you are required to understand this because what you are going to be doing in the industry is about managing relationship, managing contracts. So there is need for you to know while you are planning and thinking that everything is going to go smooth, because that is the interest of the parties to any contract. It is as simple, like I told you earlier, that even you going to buy a pen in the market, how much is this pen? It is 30 naira. You collect the pen, you give them 30 naira. Contract transaction has occurred there. Anything could happen there. But many a times you engage in such transaction, in such contract, without you even knowing it, where there is no problem. But it is not impossible at times, like some of the funny stories you might have read in the papers, that such things could even lead to problem, whereby they now say that somebody is suing because of ordinary 20 naira, because of ordinary, you know, that kind of a thing. That is to tell you that no matter how simple a particular transaction could be, dispute could occur. And for you to manage any relationship in terms of parties in an agreement, there is need for you to understand what are those things that drive them. So once there is a kind of agreement on a point of law or fact, conflict of legal views or interest between two persons, then there is a dispute. So dispute basically is a majorly like disagreements. And that disagreement must be on something that is established that, oh, this man could be right, this man could be wrong. It now depends on how the law is going to look at who is right and who is wrong. What is the material fact that makes somebody right or that makes it wrong for somebody to have done something else? In another balance, you can put a dispute as a short-term disagreement that can result in the disputant reaching some sort of resolution. It involves issues that are negotiable. We call it dispute because we believe that there could be solution to it. Yes. And of course, it is something that is negotiable. Oh, you are arguing that he has not done this. Why have you not done it? When will you do it? Okay, I will do this. Okay, if you do this, then you have to do this to me. You know, that kind of understanding between the parties. And once that understanding is done, then of course the parties can go ahead with their relationship with the existing agreement between them. So the intention, as said earlier, of any contract is for everyone to move smoothly. So that is the hope of all the parties to the contract. We want everyone to move smoothly. Ensure, please check your device. That the works will be completed on time and of course to budget. So once everything moves smoothly, nobody will argue that, oh, the contractor is delaying or the client is not paying on time. And of course, the client wouldn't want to hear that the contractor is asking for more money when he has not asked for additional work to be done. So those are the things that everybody put in mind at the outset of any construction contract. So this resolution is a term that refers to a number of processes that can be used to resolve a conflict, dispute, or claim. So when you talk of this resolution, remember to put the word process. It refers to process that is used to resolve conflict, dispute, or a claim. Because there is need to reduce wasted time and effort spent on dispute over economic exchange. If you look at contract in itself, it is very, very important that you avoid dispute. Why do you need to avoid dispute? You are avoiding the dispute because you want the parties to gain on time. And of course, economic-wise, the client will not want to suffer any loss, even the contractor too. Because the earlier you finish any construction project, the better for both parties. The longer you stay on it, the more expensive it is for both parties. Because at times, even if the contractor is to stay longer than necessary, the fact that you are given an extension of time does not mean that the client is going to pay for that extension. So usually, there is always this need to reduce wasted time and effort, and of course, the resources spent on dispute. And that is one of the reasons why there is need to tame any disagreement on but immediately before it escalates to something that will not be easily manageable. So you can look at this as dispute settlement too. You can use it interchangeably. And of course, dispute resolution is sometimes used with conflict resolution. Although conflicts are generally more deep-rooted, lengthy than disputes. We are saying, once we hear the word conflict, let us see how we can try to differentiate dispute from conflict. We see dispute as something that is negotiable. You have something at the end of to resolve the problem. But usually conflict is something that is deep-rooted. And in resolving it, it takes a longer time. So they look similar, but I think the problem, the difference problem is that conflict is something that is deep-rooted, and of course, it takes a longer time to resolve. When you look at the dispute resolution, which we call a process, there are usually two major types in the process of dispute resolution. Two major processes. And those two major processes are, one, adjudicative, and the second one is consensual. By the word adjudicative, the concept of formal comes in. That means you are looking at resolving that dispute in a formal way. I want to be assertive. You want to be assertive. This is my right. This is my right. The two parties are at loggerheads. They are competing. And because they are competing, they have a judge or a jury. They fall under this concept of adjudicative processes. However, when you look at the second one, which is consensual, by its meaning, that means it's an alternative adjudicative process. You didn't want to go to the formalized process of looking at how things must be done. So because you didn't want to look at that, you are looking at something that will make the problem or this disagreement to be resolved faster. It is more economical than the adjudicative process. And of course, any attempt to reach agreement will help the parties to maintain their relationship. So it is like Chinedu and Rekia, they are having disagreement too. And Imona Michael now said, instead of you having this long crisis or problem or disagreement between yourself, it goes to Rekia. So what's the problem? It's because he's doing this. stop doing this? No problem. You accept whatever. Okay. Now, you need to Chinedu too. Why are you fighting with her? Is that don't mind her? That frightening face, and I said, okay, what exactly do you want? And he explained. Then, but he has done something to understand where the problem is, and he was able to solve the problem between them, having understood the problem between, behind the scene, what exactly is causing the dispute. And without actually formalizing it, having a process of come and present your case, go and do this. He might have been able to solve the problem without them even knowing that they had something that could have led to a serious, problem on the kind of transaction they are having. So we look at such consensual process in terms of collaborative law, mediation, conciliation, or negotiation. All these are consensual processes. And these consensual processes, I said, they are something that may not have any serious formalized process. Just a way to make the two parties understand themselves. Subsequently, we shall be discussing each of these different alternative dispute process. We shall be discussing them subsequently in subsequent classes, hopefully. Now, let's look at, we have defined disputes. Let's look at the generic, and nature of disputes and conflict. I've mentioned conflict, and I said conflict is something that is more deeply rooted with emotion than dispute. But of course, the two still bear the concept disagreement. So it is necessary for us to understand one concept, the concept of fear, anger. So as human beings, male, female, men, and women, we are all filled with our intrapersonal and interpersonal conflicts in our daily lives. So as you are, even within you, at times you are fighting yourself. Where at times you just be feeling, why did this happen to you? Why? And because of that, your inner trouble, you may become aggressive. And that's conflict within. You are angry with yourself. It could be interpersonal. Somebody now comes to you at that point in time, then you shout that person out down. So in essence, your emotion many a times drive the way you agree or disagree with people. And you see the problem with most people that are in most people that are in conflict. Usually, they always want to prove themselves to be right. They will always say that I'm the right person. He is wrong, I'm right. He is wrong, I'm right. So because that person is arguing on either he is being wrong, he is wrong, or he is right, it means he will always want to win, and he will put the other party that party must lose. When you have yourself in such a situation of he must lose, I must win, then that concept could be termed zero-sum mindset. Zero-sum means that whatever you have from that other side is zero. You must lose everything completely. We are saying that mindset, that zero-sum mindset, it is wrong. Are you with me? That kind of mindset is wrong. So the zero-sum mindset means that you want to win everything, and the other party is completely wrong. And in resolving such a dispute, it may take a longer time. That usually happens in conflict because the two partners becomes combative. I must defend myself. He's wrong. He's wrong. But Instead, there could be a kind of integrative solution, a kind of agreement between the party. Oh, I heard you, but no, he has gone too far. I can't accept this. Okay, so there are times that you accommodate and compromise, and that is called positive sum mindset. The positive sum mindset is actually better than the zero sum mindset. So in resolving conflicts, if proper care is not taken, then the project is going to suffer in terms of increasing project costs, in terms of delay, in terms of reduction in productivity, in terms of a loss of profit or damage to business relationship. And of course, we always emphasize in any construction contract, relationship is key. The parties should be able to maintain their relationship.
You earned this treatment. You behave.
Is that Hannah?
Please, everybody, put off your mic, please. We are not able to hear Dr. Bailey.
It's like a tramp. Did you censor him?
So, dispute by its nature, and of course, conflicts, is a process of polarization, preceding opportunity. Which means when two people are in conflict, they tend to be apart. I don't want to see him, he must not see me. And they tend to have that defending position in a way to destroy their opponents. So whatever it is good from the other party, they wouldn't listen to it. All they see is that the other party is wrong and we are right. So we are saying because of this mindset of conflict, project teams will experience frustration, tension, burnout, intra-team conflict due to muted tension or polarization of opinion, because you don't want to listen to the other party at all. Whatever the other party is saying is wrong. The whole idea is destroy it. That is conflict. That is not healthy for the industry we operate in. Hello, students. Hello, students. Are you hearing me?
Yes, you can, sir.
Are you hearing me? So far, do you understand the concept we have discussed?
Sir, we can't hear you, sir. We can't hear you.
People
mics are on. People mics are on. So your voice is echoing and it's cracking and it's not making us hear you well. Some people are watching movie.
Why?
Sir, please, can you put
we are mature, you can do better now, please.
Sir, you cannot point mic those people that did not mute their mic.
We are struggling to hear you very clear here, sir. I'm struggling to hear you. Can off everyone's mic.
Okay. Well, because I will need your response at times, let me just believe that you guys will cooperate and behave better. Now, I hope you are hearing me clearly.
Yes, sir.
Now, based on what I've discussed, I've told you about disputes, conflict, the nature of dispute, the dispute and conflict, of course. the concept of looking at every other person as being wrong when there is a dispute or disagreement, and thinking that you are the only one that is right. And of course, it aggravates the matter when you put yourself apart. There is polarization between the parties in an agreement, and in doing that, the whole idea is that is about defending yourself, destroying the other party. The other party is wrong and you are right. We say that is not healthy for the kind of interaction that happens in construction contract, because the project team will begin to experience frustration, tension, burnout. And of course, in the course of doing that, the parties will end up, having polarized opinion, and nobody listens to another. It wastes time. Resources will be wasted. And at the end of the day, the project is going to suffer. So we must ensure that we understand the nature of conflict. We understand the way it is by its generic nature, and we avoid it on any construction contract that we manage. Yeah. Now, having said that, there are models that depict how conflict is expressed, how you can manage it, and how you can study it. There are models. So, and of course, professionals understand that why people do what they do in conflict situations. What is the pattern of how humans tend to function in the context of conflict, and why they do so. So understanding the reasons and mechanism gives us the hope of learning how to be more effectively respond and communicate or cross-examine things. So there is need for you as a professional to understand the reasons and mechanisms that make people behave the way they do, so that you can be able to manage them better. Let's look at one of the models, and that model is the intensity of a conflict when it happens. Latent in your mind, you are free, no problem. But once there is emergence of conflict, if you don't take care to call yourself to order, and another party too is not doing same, there is every likely to escalate it. Okay? So you have it from latent to emergence of that dispute, you escalate it. Once it's escalated, if you don't curb it, it will grow to a stalemate. And that stalemate means the two parties are not in talking time again. I'm right, I'm right. He's wrong, he's wrong. I cannot listen to him again. I cannot listen to her again. But with time, whether you like it or not, like they used to say, time heals everything. You just begin to wonder whether there is need for you to listen, or maybe somebody comes in between you to sort it. Then there will be the escalation. It is natural that there will be de-escalation. Forget about all this problem and focus on what I'm doing. Then after the escalation, there is settlement. Okay, this party is right, this party is wrong. Oh, this is your mistake, this is my mistake. Oh, I accept this. Then once there is settlement, there is peace building. We are saying this conflict intensity model is clear, and it happens in any conflict situation. However, why do we need to study this model is to know that time is usually of essence. So instead of you dragging on each of these 7 stages of conflict intensity, the earlier you come down to agree, the better for the parties on the project. Now, there is this other model. It looks complex, but it is very simple for you to understand. Just calm your mind and study each of the sectors you are having from that circle. The whole idea is from the extreme end, from one extreme end positive to the other extreme end negative. Now, this particular sports, B1, B3, B4, shows the area of affects, the area of balancing the issue, integration of issues. The negative, this left and the right, trying to move together to resolve. This AC down here is the extreme other end. There is no integration at all. The two parties are apart. Now, if you now look at A6 and C5, you understand self-reliant, isolated, and punitively angry, obsessed with revenge. These are 2 scenarios. The self-reliant isolated is, I don't want to do anything with anybody. I'm all alone. I isolate myself. The other side is very punitive. He's ready to argue with anybody. He's ready to be confrontational. He's ready to attack. And of course, down that sector, you see how seductive and obsessed with rescue. That seems relatively even reduced than the inner core of it. The same thing you are having down the and the C1. The A2 up is showing you distancing. If your friends, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I don't, because such a person is distancing himself or herself. He doesn't want to offend anyone. But the other one is ready to irritate anyone. I don't care. It can trouble you or whatever we are going to do. Oh, yes. Let the disagreement, let the fight continue. I don't care. And at the upper corner of that distancing is the idealized. He's ready to allow people to say, you are good. Oh, you are perfect. You know, praise him so that nobody wants to even fight against him or her. But the other upper arm is the other guy that's disseminately desirous of comfort. Don't disturb such a person. His comfort is what he wants. So when such a person is in conflict, you wouldn't want to listen until he graduates to that area of balance and it's okay, each wants comfort. We should share that understanding of comfort. So when you study this model, you see outside a circle the intensity of such conflicts, how it is more at risk to go down the lane so that you become imbalanced, not integrated. And of course, how you go at less risk to go up the curve, upper sector, and of course, area of agreement between you and the parties. So I will need you students to study this model 2 and understand it for your own consumption. Is that clear, students? Response, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, it's
Now
not
let's
clear.
proceed. Okay. Let me briefly explain again. Are you seeing the circle, that model,
Yes.
conflict model?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, with that model, the clear understanding is this. Have it divided into different sectors. You have this wider sector, B1, B3, B4, up. If you observe, B1 and B4, they are what are opposites. The one left, the one right. If you check the wordings there, they are what are. So the B3 there is where there is a fuse. There is integration. They balance the whole argument, the whole trouble or whatever the agreement is there. They try to give in to themselves. And if you see down below here, the sector below that B2, B1, B4, you have this one, which is the smaller or the smallest of the sectors there, called balanced, not integrated, AC. That is the worst, sector there. And if you check outside the circle, you are going to see, you'll be seeing this arrow that is showing less risk. And of course, down the circle, you see more at risk going to no agreement, not integrated. But up here, you have less risk. That means that is where you have balance, integrated, and all that. And if you look at the other sector here, which is A is more like somebody that didn't want to disturb others. He's ready to give you all. He's ready to accommodate you. He doesn't want to disturb you. He's ready to praise you. But if you look at C is ready to be aggressive. He's ready to confront you. He's ready to irritate you. He's ready to, revenge, whatever. So that is the brief summary there. And I say you should go and study it further. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very much. You're welcome. Now, we continue with our conflict mode reactions. Yeah. So in managing conflict, as a manager involved in contract agreement, there is need for you to study, like you are in class, whether you like it or not, you are studying yourselves. And that's why somebody will say, I like interacting with Mr. A. I interact with her, but I have a reservation in my relationship with her. I relate with anybody. You know yourself, the way your class is. That is the way you understand people that are involved in any construction contract. You need to know them too, so that you can categorize them. So when there is any conflict or dispute to be managed, you know how to approach them by their side. So when you look at managing conflict, there are two major dimensions to it. And the two dimensions are: one, assertiveness, and two, cooperativeness. Assertiveness is the guy is ready to stand up to whatever he believes in. That is the way it must be. He's ready to compete with you. Cooperativeness is a personality trait. The individual is showing agreeability. He wants things to move on smoothly. So he's ready to agree. He's ready to concede some things. He's ready to compromise. Now, under these two dimensions, 5 conflict reactions can be identified. And these 5 can now either be assertive, cooperative, or a mix of the two. The first there is competition. Competition. You see, when somebody is competing, He doesn't want to allow any other person to lead him or her. He's always the one. So at the other end, he's not really ready to cooperate. He wants to lead, he wants to win. He's ready to compete with anyone. That is someone that is more assertive, is very assertive. So someone that has that competition trait is under that dimension of being more assertive. He believes, yes, what he believes. Even, at times you may believe in something, but that is one thing that it's just like Muslim Christian. I need to use that example very clearly. Muslims believe that what they are doing is the right thing. Christians believe that what they are doing is the right thing. The world has not been able to say Muslim or Christian, one is better than the other. The one is the better one. Nobody has been able to convince the world so that we can do one religion. So whether you like it or not, the truth is between these two religions, there is competition because the two is being assertive extremely that yes, my Christianity is the best. Nothing can change it. My Islam is the best. Nothing can change it. So they are in competition and they will never bow for themselves. No, they want to be that. This what I'm doing is it. So that is competition. The next one, the next, reaction I can get under those two dimensions is collaboration. Collaboration is response elicited from people that are highly assertive and highly cooperative. The same thing, I will still use the Muslim Christian stuff. When there is any religious crisis, they will call the leaders. What they want to do? They want to collaborate. This one will assert his position. The other one will assert his position. But they are at the same time, they want them to do what? They want them to cooperate. Yes, there is difference between us. But we need to cooperate to move this country. They will now make it clear to them that, well, you have your right to yourself. He has the right to himself. But for the purpose of this, let us cooperate. So they are both assertive and, of course, cooperative. So they collaborate. You have yours, I have mine. They collaborate. That's collaboration. Then we have compromise. This is like a middle ground. It's not too comfortable. Okay. It's not too cooperative. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. He will let go. Even though deep inside him, he will just let go. So it is more like the middle course, the middle ground. Okay. Now we have the next reaction, avoidance. That is the extreme rung of the ladder. Remember the other time I was explaining that model to you. The guy that is more like, no, I don't want anybody. You're okay. He wants to isolate himself or herself. He wants to avoid any problem, whatever. So there is low level of assertiveness. He wouldn't want to assert anything. And he wouldn't want to say, I want to compete to anybody. Just let me be. Let me be so that I don't want to offend you. I don't want anybody to offend me. Oh, you're okay. If you study people that are people like that, they just want to avoid unnecessary interaction. What he believes, by not really interacting with you, by isolating himself or herself, there will be no problem. That is the kind of reaction that such a person is having. Then you have accommodation, and that's another reaction or another response. He's not really assertive, but he's ready to accommodate anything. He's ready to cooperate with anybody. So on this part, accommodation assertive is very low. When it comes to cooperation, very high. Because that's why I say, he accommodates everybody. That guy, he accommodates. He accommodates. So when you study people in any construction contracts, you notice all these traits in them. It helps you in establishing how best do you manage them. So you can use this as an instrument. Of course, it was developed by Thomas Kelman. So you know that managers can use, and of course, it can save time, resources that would have been lost to long and lengthy conflict resolution. So you understanding people that are into any construction contract is very important in you managing conflict or any dispute that might happen between them. So we can put that one too in a mode as a diagram that you are seeing on the screen now. You have the I assertiveness from low to high on your y-axis. You have the cooperativeness from low to high on your x-axis. And of course, you see how competition is high on assertiveness, but low on cooperativeness. I hope you are following. You see how avoidance is low in assertiveness and low in cooperativeness. You now see how accommodation is low on assertiveness, but high in what? High in cooperativeness. And you see how collaboration is high on assertiveness and high on cooperativeness. You now see compromise in between the four of them. And that is why they say the resultant effect of everything at the end of the day, the resultant, sum of it all is for the parties to compromise. They have to, give in certain things and allow peace to reign. And this mood, this conflict mood responses is what you as a manager should know when you are resolving dispute among parties. Now, having discussed that, on our discussion on disputes, conflicts, and of course, the different models of conflict, the way you can manage it and all that, I believe that is clearly understood. And once that is understood, we can move to the next slide, which is a separate topic. I wouldn't know if I can entertain one or two questions. If I can entertain one or two questions at this point.
One of the first time I ever studied for that.
If they talk inside of my body, they talk inside of no.
Hello, students. Hello, students.
Hello.
Can I entertain one or two questions? One or two questions. Who are those making noise, for God's sake? One or two questions, please. Could I proceed?
Yes.
We make progress.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we are now on the international dimension to conflict, and of course to dispute management. And as a point of view, there is need for you to understand this one too. It's very important, because you wouldn't know. Eventually, you may need to manage a contract whereby you have an international dimension to it. So like, you know that Nigeria government is engaging in several international contracts. Like the Lekki Express, it will have international. The railway that government is doing currently most of these contracts with some of these foreign contractors that involve the foreign governments, there will be international dimension to them. So there is for you to understand how some of these contracts are being managed. And that is why as youth, lend me your ear, please. As youth, whenever you argue and discuss things, avoid emotion. Always talk and discuss based on knowledge. That is why you are students. That is why you are learning this. Traditionally, the term international conflict refers to conflict between different nations, states, and of course, conflict between people and organizations in different nations or states. In our industry, there are many standard forms of construction contracts that, of course, address the international commercial stuff, relationship. And of course, there are different forms of contracts that are used internationally. However, you need to know that the most frequently encountered contracts. So most of the time, FIDIC is very good for international contracts. FIDIC, of course, nobody's saying that that's the only contract that is available. So disputes under the FIDIC standard form of contract are referred for the final determination of an arbitral tribunal under the International Chamber of Commerce. Subsequently, you are going to understand that, you see, the whole idea about contract management in construction is to understand that before you go into litigation, you should have explored the alternative dispute resolution methods. And some of these dispute resolution methods could include the concept of arbitration. And when you have such arbitration, there is need for you to understand which body manages arbitration. Because you remember, when we were talking about dispute resolution, the process, the two processes that we have, the adjudicative and the consensual. We mentioned that adjudicative, litigation, and arbitration, or dispute resolution method, because it is because we are trying to avoid litigation, court processes and all that the idea of arbitration actually came in.
Well,
we are in class.
Sure. All those shirts.
So because of that, the process that arbitration is taking requires that you have formalized bodies managing.
And the shirt was the net was big. You like it?
Yeah. It's not big.
Is it that something?
No, it's not something. Just
so the ICC administers more international arbitration than any other institution in the world. So, for example, if Nigeria is having a contract with, say, Germany or Russia or America or something, when they have to manage any arbitration, they need to have a body that they refer that arbitration to. Just like I want to believe many of you have heard of this P&ID contract, that the arbitration is sitting in UK. Even though the contract is here in Nigeria, you wonder what concern UK with Nigeria and that kind of a thing. Normally, parties need to agree where their arbitration will be once they enter into any construction contract. So why there is this with a broad range of disputes, construction and engineering make up a noticeable proportion. So there are some different disputes that this body, International Chamber of Commerce, handles, but in the world, construction and engineering make up a noticeable proportion. And why? It is because many times you hear that government has yet to, the government will announce that they want to procure this particular project. Before, at the end of the day, it becomes abandoned. Nothing happens. it becomes a siphon for corrupt practice. They just use it to siphon money, you know, and that is why at the end of the day, such disagreement or problem on a construction contract could take them to International Chamber of Commerce, you know, for arbitration process. Remember, you would have been hearing, if you are reading newspapers and the likes, or you listen to news and the likes, that most or many projects in developing world like Nigeria are being funded by international banks. You know, the World Bank, banks from South Africa, different banks across the world. So the works are often carried out by contractors from other jurisdictions, sometimes in joint venture, and also with concern from other jurisdictions. So what we're saying is there are construction contracts that those that are consultants, they are foreigners, they are from Italy, France, Germany, UK. The contractor that's going to carry out the work is not a Nigerian, it's a Chinese contracting firm. You know? So the fact that you are having contracts from different parts of the world requires that the law to be used on such contracts regulates what the contractor has been doing over the years. It's different from the law of your own country because of the different, let's say for clarity's sake, different norms, different culture, this different exposure, different technology. So it is therefore not unusual to encounter a construction project where the substantive law is that of a country other than the one in which the project is taking place. So many times the law that is being operated on some such contract that are international contracts could be different from the country where the project is taking place. So because the law that they are using is not the one in the place where the contract is, of course, the way this is going to be resolved, the procedure might also be different. For example, you have a project in Indonesia. It's actually from RICS concept. And of course, the law might be English law. And the English law, if you are to on that contract, the dispute resolution place could be Singapore. So the parties could choose a different, you know, arbitration location, like Singapore, and they are going to carry out that arbitration in accordance with the arbitration laws of Singapore. This will mean that any substantive legal issues between the parties will govern by English law. As a result, interpretation of contract, breach, and the amount of damage, everything. However, as the procedural aspect of the arbitration will be in Singapore, then it means of the arbitration will be that of Singapore. So any issue relating to the procedure of the arbitration will be governed by Singaporean law. Now, the contract is in Indonesia. They are using English law. And if there is any dispute, they will not resolve it in Indonesia. They will go to another country, Singapore, to resolve the issue. And that's why I said, just like that of Nigeria case, there is a popular case. I expect you guys to know the P&ID contract. Of course, it is here in Nigeria, but the arbitration issue is being resolved where? In UK. That is the nature of an international, you know, contract. So when there is dispute, you have to actually state where dispute is going to be resolved. And of course, the party will have agreed to that. So when you look at international law, the current international relations will come to bear. The concept of the traditional theories of international relations, in a very brief account, will tell you that there is traditional, which is public international law, which is to an order of interstate relations. So this international public law, you may not really see it as being useful or being in consonance with contract law when it comes to managing construction contracts, because it is about the sovereignty of a particular nation, and no country wants to give its sovereignty to any other nation. So in essence, because they want to protect the traditional jurisdiction, their constitution, they wouldn't want any law to supersede the law of the land. And that is why, because of the concept of sovereignty, constitution of the country, the contractor is coming from another country in the kind of international relationship, international contract, may not also want to agree to your own law, because you don't want to agree to his own law. So because of that, there will be need for the two of you to have a common ground that A and B from different countries can agree. And I tell you, that is the reason why you have the UN, United Nations. So that they can actually look at things that we can use to manage the world beyond individual constitution. And that is why beyond the international public law, we have the private law. So by contrast, the private international law was more universalistic in its orientation, because it's about the understanding of the private law. Because it's about private relation, it's about your organization and my organization in two different, countries. We want to be apolitical. We don't want to be political. We want to be civil. And now look at interest between the two of us. And that interest is going to drive the agreement between us. Don't forget, in construction contract, normally, we do have standard forms of contracts. So I said earlier, there are existing form of contracts. The one that is popular that I've mentioned is FIDIC, which we have discussed previously. So they have such form of contract that actually deals with international private contracts. So the FIDIC we mentioned will actually be more like a private one that the parties can easily relate with beyond the constitution of individual countries' sovereignty. So in essence, it is universal. It is compatible with the refusal to support foreign regulatory objectives. Because in any country, there is always their political dimension to doing anything. But when you have the private national law, then both parties will, eschew their, regulatory concept for their country and now embrace the one that is for a private, transaction that they are having. And of course, such law will take into consideration the private relationship between the organizations and not that of individual states or country. I said earlier that United Nations has done a lot. Many of you have been hearing United Nations. In fact, many times you wonder what is even the work of United Nations? What are they doing here? Because you just hear United Nations and Nigeria is attending this conference. Nigeria is attending this convention. What are they even? What is the essence? The whole idea about such conference and convention is that once the country has agreed to a particular convention, you are bound by it. it means such international convention or treaties or standards are some of the things that will guide the international, contract that such country or its entities can actually relate with. So many of the treaties that were brought about by the United Nations, form the basis of the law that governs relations among nations. So when two different nations or two or more nations are engaged in any relationship or contract, they will always want to respect the treaty and convention or standards of the United Nations. And it has serious impact on our daily lives. You may not know because you are not having any legal issue. But when you have any legal issue that has to do with international, that has an international dimension, you don't understand why the United Nations is very important. And of course, I have within this document I sent to you different, conventions that the United Nations has actually passed as multilateral treaties. So the one that has to do with prevention and punishment of crime, genocide, racial discrimination, civil and political rights, economic, social, and cultural rights, discrimination against women, law of the sea, rights of child, nuclear test ban, the one on contract for international carriage of goods, wholly or partly by sea, the one on economic, social, and cultural rights. Some of these things, they have impacts on any international contracts that anybody is going to enter into. For example, you have this one on elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Any contract you enter into any part of the world, no matter how international it is, you are saying that it is private, it must not have any element to show that there is discrimination against women in it. So far, Nigeria government has signed into that. Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination. Whatever international contract you are signing, that form of racial discrimination must not be seen in the relationship in that transaction. So these are some of the things that the United Nations is doing to ensure that parties to contract, they understand. So also within the United Nations, we have the International Law Commission, and they'll be given topics chosen by the commission, and they have to look at it and they resolve it, and whatever they have agreed upon, they can pass that convention, and they can even call a conference for it, so that it can become formally agreed to be bound by its provision. Some of these conventions form the very foundation of the law governing relations among states. So they are, what is it called? The pronouncement of, laws that emanate from International Law Commission, which member states do have representative in, could form some of the things that the countries will agree on as, conventions or treaties that the parties will agree on. And among them, we have the Convention on Non-Navigational Uses of International Water Courses, law of treaties between states, international organizations, and of course between international organizations adopted at a conference. You have different conventions that it's clear on what are the clauses that you have in any contract form to be used on any international contract. So using some of this international form of contract, like the feeling that had been mentioned, require that when you are checking the clauses, you must ensure that those treaties or conventions that your country is part of, none of the clauses in that contract must violate any of those treaties or conventions. That makes you understand how to manage your contract better as a candidate. Whatever form of contract that is being used, your concern, because on international contract arrangements, the two parties want to avoid individual countries' constitution just because of sovereignty, because no nation wants to. But there is this international private law that allows them to have arrangements, terms of agreement between themselves. But yet, that terms of agreement as it is must not also violate the international conventions and treaties. And those are the things that determine the effect that is being managed anywhere in the world. I hope that is understood. I need response, students.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So far,
Yes, sir.
we have come to the end of the lecture. And I believe, having delivered this lecture, I am going to encourage you to keep safe. COVID-19 is real. Everyone is trying to keep safe anyway. But we are praying that